Well, welcome back to another episode of the Create the Ripple podcast. I'm your host, Candice Smiley, and I am so excited to be here with you today. My guest today, we're going to talk about trusting the niggle and telling the truth, as we always do. And sometimes I'm never sure if we're going to talk about the telling the truth part or the trusting of the niggle. But today's episode is definitely one who's not afraid of a little bit of woo woo. You're not afraid to talk about things like past lives and the and, right? The and in our lives. Kind of exciting. Some of my podcasts are relatively heavy. I'm not afraid to talk about things that take some courage to engage in. This conversation was entirely fun. It was composed, as I said, of words like alchemy, luminosity. It was pure magic. And I'm so excited for you to listen in. With 2022 right around the corner at time of recording, this is the perfect podcast for you to listen to if you're looking for a catalyst to really start to think about what you want, who you might want to be, what beliefs you may need to let go of or reframe for the new year, and to really allow you to redefine yourself for who you might be into 2022. Have a listen. Well, welcome back to another episode of the Create the Ripple podcast. I am your host, Candice Smiley, and I am, as usual, excited for my guest. Elise, every time I start these things, I say the exact same thing, that I'm super excited, which I may as well just lean right into, because literally I am excited. I sit down in front of the podcast, I turn off the mom mode, and I get to connect with amazing people. Because here on the Create the Ripple podcast, we talk about trusting the niggle and telling the truth. And for me, the niggle is really that usually inconvenient gut feeling that you get that you should have said something different, doing something different, something is out of integrity for you, and you need to acknowledge it. And usually people, myself included, do not acknowledge this niggle because it usually is an inconvenient truth. But telling ourselves the truth about that, which is the second half of the tagline for the podcast, is really, it's a lot harder to tell ourselves the truth. But once we tell ourselves the truth, it's pretty easy to live from that truth, and the rest of the world can begin to hear our truth. So without any further ado, I'd love it if you could let our listeners know who you are, where you come from, how you got here, your bio, I guess, and then we'll jump right into some questions.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. And thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited. It took a little bit for us to make it work. And so I knew it was going to be amazing, just knowing that it was like, oh man, I always believe in timing. So my name is Elise Brathwaite. I'm a soul speaker and sage. I am an SRT consultant. And what that means is I work with a modality that works to bypass the conscious and the subconscious mind to tap into the soul consciousness. And the purpose for that is really to locate energies that are being played out in this lifetime now, but are rooted in past. So past lives, past experiences. And it's a really interesting, I'm going to say, modality. And then I think what's particularly interesting at this time in my life is the recognition of what I bring to that in particular. So and I'm really leaning into this energy of alchemy and what that really means, and really enjoying that. And I think that's a huge thing that's coming up in the world today. So what happens for me is I am clairvoyant, so I see pictures. It often plays out to me like a movie reel. And I speak to people's higher self. So when I say a soul speaker, and a lot of branding people are like, nobody knows what that means. You can't say that. And I was like, I love it because of that. It starts our connection off with a question, like, what does that mean? And what it really means is that I speak to people's highest self. So the highest self will start to speak to me like, hey, this is what's going on for this person, and this is what they're not seeing, and this is what they're not realizing. And then I come in and I help to illuminate that. And everybody's capable of their own healing. It's just sometimes we need somebody to shine the flashlight. So yeah, so that's a little bit about me in a couple sentences in a nutshell. And I just wanted to say, I love this part of when you were saying, like, but I do have to say I'm so excited about this, because isn't that the beauty of living in purpose? and
Mhm.
living in our magic is like literally waking up every day and being really fucking excited to do what you're doing.
I know. I think I'm like, I need to get a better word because I love words, right? And so I'm like, I'm so excited. And I think my guests are like, or my listeners are like, but you were excited for the last one. I'm like, I know, I'm just as excited, now. And it's like, it just this little switch goes and there's the magic and the connection, the collaboration and, communication. I just, those things light me up, right? They're the things I do without getting paid for. I'm really grateful I get paid for them. I do them without being paid. It's just like
Yeah,
I feel like I'm a dog, like the way tail is just wagging, right? Like we
yeah,
get to talk
totally.
today.
So excited to do this. Yeah, yeah,
uh,
definitely.
I hate to say it though, Elise, as you were starting to talk, and I know that you're clairvoyant, and I was like, oh, I can't lie to this one. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, totally. I totally get what you mean. Actually, it's a funny thing that I often say. Like, we all have a
Yes.
very unique soul print and a unique magic to ourselves. And one of mine is that I see people's shadows. And
Ooh.
actually, that's exactly it. I can't hide. And I chuckle at times because I see people, sometimes I enter a
Yes.
room and they do this like long version around the room. And I laugh and I just kind of slowly like invite them into the energy because
Right.
I know that it's not that they don't want me to see them. It's that they, like you said, they don't want to see that part of themselves,
Yes.
and possibly do whatever it's going to take or release whatever needs to be released in order to move through that part of the shadow.
Yes.
So
Well, and
yeah.
I think too, the world, at least for me, one of the most challenging lessons has been to recognize that the world is not always safe, but that I am safe regardless, right? I'm still struggling with that, as you can tell.
Yeah.
Um, and so, when I know that someone's clairvoyant, I think, oh, darn it, I can't hide the fact that I am not as comfortable, right? And I mean, that's a big part of my message is sort of living out it's messy, right? Like right down to the videos we put out, they're barely edited, right? Like because I really want to be honest with people, and so much of my story, like I'd have been terrified to meet you a few years ago before I had done a lot of the healing work. Whereas now, if you popped open and said, "Well, the shadow over here," I'd be like, "Tell me about it,"
Right. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I'm willing to invite my shadows, to dinner, basically,
Totally.
and
Totally.
have conversation. But a few years ago, and that's where a lot of this comes from, is I had ignored the niggle in my life. Any of the mistakes I got into is I knew damn well what I was getting myself into, and didn't. And then for a long time hid in the shadows because I didn't want someone to know because I was so afraid of being judged or being seen. And we're not really empowered to feel comfortable to be seen, right? We present different things, we put filters over everything in our lives, and so then how are we supposed to have real is an overused word, but like really transparent, authentic relationships? And I don't know about you, but I find myself longing for a relationship where I'll be seen, right? And I do have those, but even I'm having to remind myself sometimes, right, to say, oh, today this is where I'm at, and to trust that we'll be okay if someone else sees us, and B, that there is such a power when we show up and let ourselves be seen.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's what brings connection. And I mean, this idea, I'm going to say, of perfection, right, of whatever that is, in whatever context too we're talking about, body image, a relationship, career, doesn't matter what it is such a lie. It's just such a lie. And the lie is that there's something attainable that is perfect. Like, that's the lie. So if you think about, like, I'm subscribing to like a lie that is essentially never ending, um then no kidding we continue to go around the spiral. No kidding we continue to feel like an imposter. No kidding we don't want somebody to know we feel like that, and it just continues to spiral. And what I know about that lie is that it's actually part of our growth. Part of our growth is to live in the lie so that we can have the clarity through the contrast to go, oh, this is what it feels like to live in my truth. This is what it feels like to not only allow myself to be seen by others, but to see me. Because I talk often about this concept of intimacy, and the piece is like, into me see. But we can only allow somebody to see into us as much as we are willing to see into ourselves. So when we hit our own level of feeling like we're not being seen by somebody else, it's actually the cue of, what am I not seeing about me right now? And then you move into that. And it's such an interesting thing when I sometimes get this image of like waking up one day and realizing that I'm like the only person in the entire universe. And that everything and everyone around me has just been a reflection of something I was working through, or moving through, or growing towards, or leaving behind, or whatever it is. And actually just how fascinating and how beautiful that is. So, if we can literally recognize the discomfort, like I get to this point where I feel almost like an adrenaline rush and a juiciness when I'm like, oh, I'm getting uncomfortable.
I know, right? You're like, oh, this will be good.
Totally right. This is gonna be good. Like, what's gonna happen? Like I almost seek it out.
Yep.
And I also I sometimes I try to remind people, like, think about that first thing that you ever did, ever, whatever that was. Like you said, that first niggle that you totally ignored, and then had to realize that you ignored it, and then had to step into some accountability around having, and then had to undo whatever was created from that. Like, that wasn't like oh, okay, well, that was just easy, let me just do that instead. Like, wouldn't that be nice? But it's so worth it. Like, it's so worth it. And I think it's interesting that we're having this conversation right now too, because something that I'm observing, like with the clients that I'm working with myself right now, and I think that this is probably going to be a really important message for listeners, is, we have, particularly, I'd say recently, but like it's been in the field for a while, been like moving through this concept of imposter syndrome, or authenticity, or realness, and all that. And all of that was, necessary, and part of us moving through our own programming and whatnot. But one thing that's coming up loudly for me right now is kind of this like next level. So, we are going through such a massive shift, as we know, in our collective consciousness. And so what does the next level of feeling like we are an imposter, or the next level of feeling like we don't have what it takes to do the thing? Because again, both in myself, like I'm being called to do some really big work, and I've again witnessed myself in this like spin tail, and I'm like observing, what are you doing? Like, why are we doing that? But I'm in my humanness, and I'm like, flailing all over. And lately having a lot of like high level, leaders, and just like way showers and path makers coming up, and feeling that same, like, they're like, I'm in this, it feels like a stalemate. It feels like I know there's something else. I don't know what it is. What is the thing? And what I'd love to share with people around that, because I had to sit into it. It's showing up for me, and then it starts showing up with clients. And so then I kind of go in and start asking the questions from spirit. And for me, it's helpful because I see pictures, right? So, and I mean, there's different types of sentience, like, so are the different types of clairs. For me, there's that whole, is seeing is believing, right? Mm-hmm. But it's also, it's a way for me to like kind of embody it even before I understand it. Mm-hmm. And what I keep seeing is literally just darkness, and just like this void. And it's that we're actually moving into, or I actually wouldn't say moving in, we're there. Mm-hmm. Many of us have already surfaced. We're like, we're above, we're okay. Like, okay. Exactly. We broke through the ceiling, right? But also it feels like I don't know what to grab on to pull myself up. I can't see the path. I don't know what I'm doing here. And so the challenge is that so many people are actually creating the new path. And we haven't done that before, ever, this experience. So it is uber uncomfortable. It's like next level. I don't understand it. It's like crawling out of your skin. It's like, I can't do it. I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, I feel like I'm getting a download, but it doesn't make sense. And it's kind of like going back to what you said. Like, I feel like I need a different word, like, other than excitement.
Yes.
Literally, it attaches to that. It's where there's such new energy that even the words we used to use don't feel like they have the same potency.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Like, and there's so many people saying that. They're like, oh, it's more than grateful. it's more than excitement. It's more than this. And you're like, so that more is existing for us right now. And now we need to go discover it.
Yes. And I love it what you say, because I also and that's part of my challenge, to be honest, is I will be given the gift to see, the potential in something, or where we're going. And then I haven't been very good with timelines.
Mm.
And so now I'm learning, and I'm like, oh, I got to download. Is this something I'm going to get like this year, or like 10 years from now?
Yeah.
Because people invariably say, oh, well, you said you were going to do that 5 years ago, and now you've done it. And for the longest time, that was a thing I interpreted negatively, right? That I hadn't done enough. And now I'm coming to understand, now that I've reconnected with my soul last year, reconnected with my feminine, emerged from 2020 being all like, okay, so now my masculine and my feminine are married. Masculine's been overdeveloped, so I'm putting that part of myself like, shh, it's okay,
Yeah.
chill for a
Yeah.
minute. And how easily he'll step forward to take over. I'm like, wait,
Yeah.
just a minute. And leaning into the feminine and coming into friendships, relationships, work, and being like, I have zero idea how to operate in this
Yeah.
moment. So I'm so excited that we get to talk today, because it's been seeming like 2021's been going out with a bang. For a
Yeah.
number of people. And like, as you're talking, I'm thinking about a few friends who have had like November, December has been like, if there's a brick wall, they have schmucked that thing like head on. Something's happened. We've each had a moment where we've like literally just like ugly cry, like
Yeah.
effing ugly cry. And we're talking about that. And then we're redoing our goals, and we're all saying things like, I'm glad I went through that. It sucked, but I'm really focused on what I want. And they're actually putting goals on paper, myself included. So my wall thing, well, one of them is that I've had a ton of dental work. Really small mouth, go figure, right? I love to communicate. So we had to make some room for all of this. And wouldn't you know it, I need a root canal. I have never needed a root canal. And I need a root canal in the one tooth that apparently, because I've looked it up, and one of the potential meanings of root canal is to dig out old belief patterns. And I'm like, this makes sense for 2021. Like, yes, I can understand. Okay, so I'm excited about this root canal. I'm like, let's get in there and let's get it out,
Yeah.
right? Like, right. And they're like, this may have been going on for a long time. I'm like, no shit, Sherlock. Like, I'm aware that some of my subconscious beliefs have been running the show for a very long time. So
Yeah.
I'm not actually surprised. I end up being in a dentist office that's all women. They're all women empowered. And I'm like, this is so okay. So I'm picking up, right? I'm like, okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Leaning into this. And last night I go in for this crazy root canal. And wouldn't you know it, but they're like, well, we actually can't get into the root. There's like a block there. And I burst out laughing, which is hard to do when you've got various dental contraptions in your
And-
mouth.
yeah.
And they're like, well, that was funny. And I was like, oh, right. Like, anyway, so I'm highly abused when you talk about this whole shadow thing, because I'm like, and they're like, well, we could refer you to someone. And I'm like, well, yes, I'm sure there's a solution, but I'm not surprised that I may have to go at this from a few different angles to
Right.
dig out the root belief. And I'm like, I'm coming for you. Like,
Totally.
we're
Right.
digging this out before 2022, because I'm ready for the next whatever the more is.
Yeah.
Anyway, and they're like, this is normally really easy. I'm like, I know, but I know why it's there.
I love it so much. I love it so much. And you know what? Kudos to you for having that awareness, because it's easy when we start dipping into our physical health,
Mhm.
forget to forget that there's a context, that there's a thing going on. And I always kind of, somebody gave me a long abbreviation, but it's basically like, you can't make this shit up, right?
No,
Like,
you can't. That's
yeah.
what I was saying. Like, I'm messaging my friends who are, more woo than some of the other ones. And I'm like, I am a brilliant manifester. Do you want to hear
Yeah.
what I did recently? Okay. I have manifested a root canal.
Right.
And I love those stories, because then it reminds me, and I think, well, if I can subconsciously manifest a root canal, because I'm not dealing with an issue, and I'm pretty darn sure I know what some of the issues are. So I'm currently working on those outside of it. And I was like, so if I work on the issues, will I not be the root canal? They're like, no, sorry, we're going to help you dig this out. But,
Right.
it's entertaining. And, I'm like, well, then what else could I manifest in the new year? Like, I'm actually excited about it. And
Totally.
it's really entertaining. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that too. I always say to people, like, think about the fact that you've been able to manifest the next hardship, the next root canal, the next block, the next whatever, like that you're that powerful. Like, imagine when you start doing
mhm,
the work and letting it go, what you get to create.
mhm,
When that power is utilized for what you actually truly want,
right?
which is why I find some people too, like I love all the work out there. I really do. Like it's got potency, it's necessary,
Mhm.
it meets people where they're at. And I often find sometimes people come to me like, I'm doing these affirmations and I'm doing these things and but they're not it's not helping. It's not landing. I'm not getting the thing I want, and I always say to people, like, well, first of all, it's because you actually have to assimilate your inner vibration to that thing. And manifestation is often from this idea of like, I'm calling it in. And so, and it's like that frame of like, people need to just kind of know you're becoming it. And then it magnetizes to you. Right. And so, I'll do sometimes, not often in session, spirit will really want people to like start to tether to something. But you said that you like words, and so do I. It's like, is it this word or is it this word?
Oh my
Yeah,
God, you're totally my people. Because literally, when I did my values exercises last year, I was like breaking down words. I was going so far as being like, is it courage or is it bravery? Is it achievement or is it accomplishment? And it was amazing to me when I looked it up. And I was like, oh, it's neither of those. It's actually this word, right?
yeah,
Like I chose brave, even though it's courage, because bravery is the ability to act courageously or
exactly.
from the heart. And
Yeah.
courage is just like that thing. And I was like, well, I
That's what
actually
you
want
get from
brave.
being brave.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
whew.
Talk about that all the time, right? So, and people, it's interesting when they start feeling the frequency. They're
Mhm.
like, oh, like this does
Oh,
feel different. I'm like, it's different. It's totally different.
yes.
Like, there's a reason why there's a dictionary because they mean something different. And then
Mhm.
I always invite people to go into like, what does it actually mean for you? Because not only is there like a written um, definition, but we have our own, which goes back to the whole excitement doesn't feel like the right word anymore,
No.
right? Because you're like, there's a next level. There's like this
Yeah.
next potency, right? And so we don't have those words yet, but they're coming. They're
Mhm.
coming, and we need to start downloading them and bringing them into the earth realm. And some people are doing that with light language and even just experiencing it. And I had a friend, it was so funny, we've been dealing with this word issue, and it's so funny because she'll what was it, what was her word one day? Oh, I think it was, I don't know, it was maybe consciousness. And when you start saying, she was like, did I say that right? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, she's trying to say it, and I could tell her inner being was like twisting at saying this word, like, are you sure that sounds right? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's happening. That and luminosity. That was the other
Ooh,
word.
I really like that in your bio. I read that. I'm like, luminosity. I'm like, that's a word I need to learn how to use in like my everyday vocabulary.
Yeah, luminosity, right? And so, anyways, I had already been going through this quite some time, I'd say, but the last like 2 years with words. And so she was literally, I could feel her off kilter. She's like, I feel like they don't even make sense. And I said, I think you're actually being downloaded with the new frequency of that word, that new frequency. So even now,
Mhm.
when we speak the word luminosity, or
Mhm.
when you or say the word excitement, if you actually tether to what like the new, if you tether to what the new meaning of it means, is that even though you're going to say the same word, the resonance of it will be completely different.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, it's next level.
That is next level. And I was interesting. Something that's coming up for me at the moment is that you were saying, marketing people don't like what you say in terms of the it's halting when it's spirit 'cause it's still coming in. Um
Like branding
the
name.
branding, right? And I was thinking about that because I have a friend who asked me to help her write her bio, and I love words. Words come very easily for me, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah.
And she was like, well, what do people want to hear? And in the last year, 2 years, I mean, it's coming before that, right? There were sort of seeds planted, this rumble, but in the last 2 years, it's been like, I don't want to say or do things that everybody says I should be doing. I want to kind of do my own thing. And every time I do, wouldn't you know it, the next level shows up.
That's right.
Yeah. So I was thinking about when you had said that. I'm like, no, I got souls. Like I got it. I was like, sweet, she's gonna talk to my soul. And then my the small part of me went, uh-oh. And I went, you got it. There'll be no hiding in your ego today.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right. I love it. I love it. And I love that you say that, because the perfect world for me, or not the perfect world, but like where I definitely know where we are going to, and this goes back to the word alchemy, is that we are going to a place where we understand that each of us has a medicine.
Mm,
And that instead of going like, even what's your name, or like, how do you identify, these kids are really bringing that in, like,
yeah.
don't label me, don't identify me, like, this is my essence,
Yes.
right? And people are really challenged with that, but I'm like, isn't this interesting how they're bringing it in? But it's about, I don't know what you do. I actually don't care. I don't care what your qualifications are. I don't care.
Mhm.
I feel in my being that you have a medicine for me. So whether that's a conversation, or whether that's a treatment, or whether that's a session, like, and that can be the person on the street, right? Like, it's not about, I go to all these practitioners. So I would love there to be a day, like, I get the whole, I mean, I get challenged with all media at times, because I think there's the blessing side of it, and then there's the destructive side of it. But a lot of people, like, and again, it's not that I don't resonate with spiritual healer. It's not that I don't. I kind of, I'm like, you're healing yourself, right? So that's where I'm like, I've asked people, what would you consider me? They're like, oh, you're my spiritual mentor, you're my spiritual healer. I was like, yeah, okay, I can see all that. But then I was like, what am I? And I'm like, I speak to your soul, right? So in a perfect world, people would be able to, like, talk about what they feel their frequency is, and then share it, and people who are like, what does that mean, should use that as the cue as there's something there for you, because, like, wouldn't that be amazing, me being like, I don't know why, but I'm gonna trust it. That's that niggle.
Hey, I wanted to talk to you a minute today about the gig economy. What is the gig economy? It's basically the side hustle, side income economy that's become so popular today and age. I hope you're still listening to this ad because it's really important for me. I was in the network marketing industry for over 13 years and I had an incredible experience. I learned a ton of things, but there were many things about the industry of network marketing that I really didn't love. One of which was the overinflated products. Number two was the fact that I had to build a team or balance those things that we would call legs, the whole pyramid thing. I really was done with that. About a year ago, I was introduced to a social retail company. Social retail simply means that we are using our social media platforms, which are free, by the way, to promote products and services that we love. The affiliate marketing is booming. Not even going to lie. It's an incredible place to be in. And I am speaking to the woman who's in her 30s or maybe in her 40s, and she'd like to create that extra income. She'd like to create income on her own time. And she'd like to do it in a company that isn't all about the hype, that has some real products that she can get behind, and would work with somebody who wants to teach her how to do that. If that's you, then I would really love it if you would reach out to me. Feel free to comment below or leave me an email. Scan the code. I'm sure there's a code somewhere if you're watching on my YouTube channel, but I would love to get in touch with you. And this is why. The company that I'm with, modere.com or modere.ca, depending on where you're at, check out shiftingretail.com. So that's shiftingretail.com. I want you specifically to go check out the values of this company and what their mission is. That was really important for me. I got flown down to the corporate offices and I had a chance to meet with the corporate crew and meet with the visionaries that are really driving the company forward. And what I discovered is this. The first thing they said to me was, Candice, when people come here from a network marketing company, they start making money. Now, disclaimer, this is work. This is going to take work. This is going to take energy, effort, time, and skill. It's not a get-rich scheme. Those don't exist, at least not ones that I would like to put my name behind. However, this company pays us 10 to 36% on commissions of whatever we've moved within our business. And we get paid daily. We get paid up to twice daily. Biggest, coolest thing about this, if I move product, I get paid on the product, period. No balancing legs, no having to do any of that stuff. If product moves because of a referral that I did, whether it was through my social media, through a swipe up influencer, or a person-to-person conversation, doesn't matter. I'm going to get paid on it. And for me, being paid on the work and the effort that I do is important. So if this is something that's intriguing to you, I invite you to head over to shiftingretail.com or head over to Smiley, that's CSMILEY.shiftingretail.com, and you'll be able to join my team directly. If you've got some more questions, please comment below or find a way to contact me and get in touch, because I would love to share with you how we're building this and how affiliate marketing is the place for you to be. And trust me, once I show you how to do it with this company, I will show you the many companies, brick and mortar stores, you name it, sole proprietors, entrepreneurs who have an affiliate-based idea. And once you can do it with one company, you can do it with any of them. So I'm excited to teach you that. In fact, so excited, we're going to give you 120 days of done for you posts or text that will help you so that you don't have to worry about what to post or when to post or how to post it. We're going to give all of that to you. You just got to show up with drive, determination, and some cash flow to get you started. $39.99 gets you your affiliate link and code and gets ready to start. Maybe you want to try some product too. It's awesome. But up to 2 customer orders actually qualifies you for commission. So you don't even have to place an order, provided you've got customer orders that are moving in your business. Brand new customer orders qualify you for commissions every month. Super cool. Definitely an opportunity for somebody who wants to come in, put some effort in, and work with integrity, work with honesty, but really begin to use the social media time that right now is really just wasted time and turn that into cash flow. Awesome. Hope you have a wonderful day and keep enjoying our show.
I'm going to trust it. That's that niggle, right?
That's the niggle. Yeah.
Yeah.
And people would often say, well, are you a coach or how do I introduce you? And I'm like, well, I consider myself more of a catalyst because I have no problem going first. I'm slightly irreverent. And I say that very respectfully, right? So I feel like I'm respectfully irreverent. And I know those are basically the opposite, but I guess I'm willing to have a conversation and poke the bear, right? Yep. Not to make them mad, but just be like, hey, can we think for a minute? Like, does that line up for you? Right? Or when people do that thing and like you can see that lift, right? Whether it's relief, I'll be like, that right there.
Yeah.
Follow that.
Yeah.
Right?
Go with it. Yeah.
Or when they do the other thing and I'm like, we want to go away from that. So where were you going before that thing? Or, I'll be talking to people, and that's really what I think. And I think I know tons of, coaches, mentors, whatever word they want to align with. I know the peeps that can, that's the gift of discernment where it shows up for me. But really, I'm kind of that person that you bumped into. And I only bump into people when they're ready for change.
Yeah.
I'm like, doesn't really mean that we're going to be friends for very long. I'm sorry. I'm going to be like that annoying bird that you get in your sock.
You
right?
Have serious energy in you or what?
I don't know. I know this. And I mean, I know some of my own past lives in this sort of thing, which I don't talk a lot about on the podcast, but I know, and I've done this before. I show up and I'm like, okay, we got to make some change around here. Yeah. And that's okay. And it was interesting because as the world shut down in 2020, I felt myself rising and I was like, this is interesting. And I was in healing at the moment. So I think I actually observed it. And I realized that, they'd call me a transformational leader, or I lead through change really well. I saw that I've seen it. It's interesting how it takes you a while before you recognize it. Yeah. I did nurses training. I love the ER because things would get really tense and I would feel myself getting super calm. And I was like, this is weird, right? Like before I was tuned in, tapped in, turned on. So it's interesting now that I come into this place and I'm like, oh, it makes sense. And it's interesting meeting people like you, the alchemists, right? We're like, here's the current space.
That's right.
Here's where the next space is. And just really coming to that place of, people say, well, you live so outside the box. And I'm like, there's a box.
There's a box.
I really want to be in it.
Oh my God. I love it.
Yeah.
I would love to see your astrology. So I'm an Aquarius, and as we move into this age of Aquarius, and I have many of my planets are in Aquarius. So I think like an Aquarius. I act like an Aquarius. I love like an Aquarius. And I totally hear that piece. Like, and Aquarius energy, Aquarius is ruled by Uranus, and Uranus is like massive transformation. So I feel that, like, I kind of come in and I'm like, blast the place open, and then I move out.
Yeah, I could see that. And you were like, so this is my planet. And I was like, oh.
Totally, right? And so I hear that where, it's my innate being to be like, let's poke that a little, like, let's go there. And I agree. So I'm with you. I've said, like, one of my values is that I'm committed to having relationships with people who are committed to having breakthroughs.
Ooh, brilliant.
Yeah, because I realized when I see somebody say stuck, like, I've had to do a lot of work on remembering that everybody has their own book of life, and that some people get to choose that, and it doesn't have to look like my timeline and all that. But it's also like, it gets to the point where, like, borderline, like, I'm not needed here. And so, like, my energy is best used elsewhere. And when you're ready, I know it will circle back.
Yes.
And I also definitely know in relationships that people can feel like, where were you? And I'm like, well, that crisis thing. Like, I remember when 2020 happened, I was like, oh, I was born for this.
I know. And I was just like, I know that so many people were negatively impacted that it was like, how do I tell you that I discovered my soul purpose? Right? Like, I have a podcast now. I'm like living my life. I'm in love with the person I'm supposed to be in love with. I'm making more babies. I just welcomed a new little soul. He's beautiful into the world.
Congrats.
And thank you. You know, I feel like I'm on purpose
for
the first time in my life. And I was like, because the world did this. And
Totally.
I was like, right. So it's weird, you know.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, duality, I think, has been the theme of all of this. Is some people are like crashing and burning, and some people are totally rising, and you're like, wow, we're having very different experiences. And I'm not totally sure how to, like, stay in my celebration when you really look like you're struggling, you know.
Sorry about that, man. Yeah, like, and the endings were like, I mean, I pulled the pin on most of them, but I felt free enough to do this. Like, my partner Mark, he had just entered my life, and I was literally, I felt like I had a grenade, and I was like, I'm gonna pull this one here and drop it. And it wasn't like, you know, it was a little explosion. I was like, no, we're literally gonna burn that bridge.
Right.
I'm gonna make sure it burns, because we're not going back there. And that was the most interesting thing. And I would have these conversations with people. I'm like, this is done. And they'd be like, yes, I know. And I was like, I am so living in my truth right now. Like, and it just fires me up. And I've been a little nervous for the world to open again, because I'm like, then I have to, like, integrate this new way of being
into the world, right?
Yes.
Into, like, reality and, like, what's happening.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think, you know, and I mean, I see that even on the other side, like, you know, my mom, who I love so much, is, you know, really struggled through all of this, and I've seen her actually retreat even more, and also is struggling with the idea of going back to, like, some form of, you know, reality.
Whatever it is,
life, right? So again, we always have, like, these themes that are playing out, and it will look totally different, but it's like the same thing, you know. So people were going through massive transformation, whether they were totally retreating into their lower selves and their anger and their fear and their this and that, totally transcending all of that, and, like, I'm getting rid of this, I'm getting rid of that, I'm leaving the career, I'm leaving the relationship, I'm stepping into purpose. You're like, whoa, you know, it's like, that's literally what duality is. Like, oh, which one are we doing, you know?
Yes.
So I think a lot of people unknowingly, obviously unconsciously, were preparing for it with the work that they were doing ahead on themselves and whatnot. But I remember when I was a little girl, I used to actually always dream. I'd always, like, recurring dream that, like, I was leading people into a bunker and, like, saving everyone. And when my kids were young and girlfriends and I would go out, they're like, oh, if we're going out, like, I want to be with Elise, like, she will have everything, she will know what to do. And then this happened, and I was like, I have been preparing for this my whole life.
My whole life, right?
Yeah, totally. And I agree. Like, when everybody started to freak out, I just calmed right down. It's like, everybody settle down here. Like, we're gonna clear this shit.
Right.
We're gonna ground. And I mean, realistically, in that time, like, when I think about the people who, again, came into my field, like, I built a community called the Unity Consciousness Collective. Like, they came into my field, and we were like working, we were clearing every single day for 40 days, every single day clearing, and just hordes of people coming in and clearing and healing and coming into program and healing some more, and some of them releasing relationships and jobs
Yeah.
and careers and belief patterns, and and then I like when I think of those humans now, like today, like
Right.
and
Right.
it's
Hmm.
what maybe took me a decade to move through took them 18
Yeah.
months.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
was not easy. It was
No.
hard. And I always say to people, like it's the energy of sitting at the fire, right? So it's like sit at the fire and let it burn away, because the other side of you is on the other side of that fire.
Yes.
And they did
100%.
it. Like they did it. And I celebrate them all the time, because like I know what that takes, and I know that that's not all like, puppy farts and like rainbows. Like that,
No.
like some real like I don't think I can handle another hit. I don't
Ah.
think I can do another thing. And it's so worth it. So,
Mhm.
so yeah, I mean, like this next rise of like the what's next,
Mhm.
and is really going to be interesting. It's really going to be interesting. I was on a shamanic journey a couple weekends ago, and I had this beautiful experience with this tree, and
I like trees.
bawling at a tree. I love this tree. Like the dog off leash, like it's the best tree in the world.
Yes.
Like feeling so much from this beautiful tree,
Yes.
grandmother tree, and she had such wisdom. And if I could share, it was just that, everything that we have all been doing until now has been to set like the most solid foundation and the solid roots. Like that's kind of what she showed me, like the
Mm.
roots going into the ground, into us, roots that extend out to new people that we didn't know before all of this, like all of that. um and that now, so the energy of alchemy, which is so interesting, is that alchemy is the energy of adding to but not taking away.
Mm.
So alchemy is really us taking all of these old or sacred teachings, and the what next is it's time to add to. So the adding to means stepping into us, our magic, our essence, owning it, releasing the patterns, releasing the habits, releasing the programming, so that literally we are in the discovery of our own magic. Like what is next level magic? What is your next level essence of you?
That's so cool.
Like breaking past your own ceiling. And I say this with like a lot of real, like,
Yeah.
I hear you, I feel you, is it won't make sense.
No. And that's the thing. Usually I can see so clearly, and lately I'm like a little foggy, guys.
Totally.
Like usually a much clearer perspective, but a greater sense than ever that I'll know the next step.
Mhm.
And I was thinking about that right down to this root canal again, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm really trying to live like everything's rigged in my favor. I know this, right? Like the emergency dental is 6 minutes from my house because I have a newborn, right? So like I
Yeah.
didn't really want to be away for very long. It's a woman, like it's a woman empowerment office. I said that. I'm like, every dentist I've seen is a woman. Everybody's a woman here. And she's like, oh, we have a couple of guys, but they're awesome. But most of them are on paternity leave because I'm like, so they're supportive of the, like there's this beautiful not even just like feminine energy, but it's like this whole balance energy. um and like the right people, and they're like, well, it's okay, we can refer you to our sister office. And I was like, of course you can. Like it's just, how does that happen? Like, and I mean, I live this, Elise, right?
Yeah.
I live in this. And it's just really interesting. So I think about the rest of my life and I think, well, I don't have to know, but I'm sure. And it's funny because I told my producer, I'm like, I'm going to talk about this darn root canal on a
Yeah.
podcast. She's like, I'm sure you will. And then when I read your bio, I'm like, I'm totally going to talk about this root canal today.
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
I understand now why I was supposed to talk to Elise before now, because I'm actually in a really great place to show up and be like,
This is what's going on. Yeah. Well, and I love that, because I'm also very much like that. And I would invite people to,
mm,
especially right now, because we have so many things creating this idea that if we ask questions, we're wrong. Right. And so, that part of you that like gets excited by the curiosity, it's like, and I heard this once, again, I had taken this program, I don't remember his name now, but he said something, and when your whole like, what? But he said, the
wait a
word,
minute.
yeah, wait a
Yeah.
minute. But the word question, that if you break it down, it's the quest I on.
Oh,
right?
That is so good.
Yeah. And then the beginning is asking. So as king or as queen,
Uh-huh.
the quest I on. So asking the question is that's actually the whole purpose. I know.
That's so good. You love words
Perfect.
like I love words.
I
Like,
love words.
did you know the etymology of the word nice is stupid?
I did not.
I know. I was raised to be a very nice girl.
Ah.
Ah, I don't want to raise a nice girl. I have a
Yeah.
6.5-year-old, and she's really anything but nice, and I'm quite
Yeah.
okay with that. But this is really fun. Question.
Yeah, to the quest I on. So if you think about yourself, like if everybody just thinks about yourself, like let's just for a minute think, like are you happy? You're maybe not your 12-year-old insecure boy band loving, drama with your friends little self,
Yeah.
right? You're probably happy that you've evolved, right? So if you think
Yeah.
about it now, because I think there's always been, even as a kid, there's this concept that we'll grow up, and then when we've arrived, I don't know what that's about. And I'm like, this is called soul school now. Like this
Yeah.
is school university, right? And so if you think about that, it's like actually like the reason we are here is to grow, to learn, to evolve, to ascend. Like that's the reason.
That's
So if you remember that, it's like if you can sit into like every day or every moment to sit into the question, like the quest I am on is to ask the question, what does this mean for me? What is the root canal about? Why are we having this talk now and not 3 weeks ago? Like,
yes.
why did I leave my job? Why did I call in that relationship? Why does that comment trigger me? Like, sit into the question, like the opportunity that comes from sitting in the question is transformative.
Very
The
much.
opportunity lost at not sitting in the question keeps you exactly where you are.
Ooh, that's so good.
Yeah.
That's so good. I hope my listeners are having as much fun on this conversation because I swear some of the conversations I have, Elise, I'm like, okay, this was definitely not, a put on while you're doing the dishes or whatever, and sort of gain some, nuggets along the way. Some of them you kind of got to sit and be like, okay, that was a little heavy.
Yeah.
But this one is definitely the one you put in your ears and you just kind of let spirit go, which I'm absolutely loving. And I'm sure we could talk forever. However,
Sure. Yeah, for sure.
let's bring this all back in. And I mean, we've talked about a lot of wonderful, wonderful, wonderful things. And of course, we will have all of the information for my listeners to be able to connect with you.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
I know that many of them are going to want to connect with you. But was there anything else we could leave the listener with, whether something that you're working on or working through or wanting to share, the message you want to sort of leave as we sort of begin to wrap up this delightful conversation?
I'm like sitting and I'm like, okay, spirit, pick one thing. What have we got?
Give it to me. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's interesting, actually. I'm like, okay, I guess what's coming through is that if we can remember that anything that we believe is a lie and is potentially limiting us. Yeah. And so, when I was literally like, really, we're going to go with that one? But
We're going to
okay.
go with that one. That was my thought. She was like, Spirit, I just said we're wrapping up. And they're like, that's what you think.
Yeah, it totally. Exactly. But if I can just like sum that up, it's that beliefs serve us until they don't.
That.
They serve us until they don't. And so if we are stuck on believing something, is to again sit into the question, like, does this serve me? And to recognize, what is it serving? Is it, I'm terrified of something. Okay, does this serve me? Yeah, it's keeping me safe. I don't do the thing. Okay. Okay, does being safe serve me? I have a belief that being safe is safe. Like, do you get what I mean? It's like allowing yourself to process, but like our beliefs are, even as I said, I was like, okay, our beliefs are good until they're not good, right? And then they limit us. So it's about, because I remember one day having this like profound conversation with spirit, and I was like, but wait a minute, like if I have no beliefs, and there's a difference between values and beliefs, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if I have no beliefs, then what would bring me to my next level of healing? So we know beliefs are created between the ages of 6 and 12, right? And the same way we may have used to believe in kids, Santa, you know,
Yep.
that we don't believe, right? Or maybe we don't believe in Santa, but we're like, holy crap, I totally believe in fairies now, right? It's like we start, okay, so we know that beliefs change. So if they change, are they ever real?
Well, I'm thinking about this because currently one of the situations, and I only know how to relate it from my own story,
Yeah.
is that I'm currently going through a divorce, which has been ongoing for a long time, and I have come now to understand, thank you so much, that this human's soul
Yeah.
must love me a lot because of the impact, negative and positive, um, on my life. Right? That if there was a soul contract,
Yeah.
for
That they
those
love
who are
you.
not sure, if there was,
Yep.
that would have been a really big burden to say, I will inflict this pain so that you can
Absolutely.
learn these lessons. And I can remember at one point, one of my healer type friends, did a little muscle test, and we had like 21 or something like that past lives together, which
Yeah.
is entertaining because we also have a child together. And I'm like, well, 21 would be about the year that she would not need us in the same way. So wouldn't that be interesting? And then I was
Right.
like, oh Lord, do I have to wait 21 years to go through this? Can I like shrink that? And so it's
Right.
been really interesting because as you're talking about this in terms of the beliefs, I've had to come to the point, and my therapist recently said, hold your beliefs lightly,
Yeah.
right? Hold the value lightly because it may not be serving you, right? Because one of my beliefs is freedom, one of my beliefs is self expression. And I can't always say what
Hmm.
I'd like to say
Okay.
because I
Yeah.
know that that's also not, that sort of conflicts with the other value, which is, compassion or
Absolutely.
love. And then
Yeah.
the love one, conflicts with the other one. And I'm just like, this human being is
That's right.
just this magical mirror of all the ways I'm not healed yet. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And so as you were saying that, I was like, wow, because I've been struggling with that
Mhm.
how do I stand my ground and not give in but
Mhm.
still be true to me. And it's like this weird, like we've been talking about the entire time, duality,
Yeah.
this and that.
Mhm.
And that's, the root
Yeah.
canal came with an abscess. And
Yeah.
if you look up abscess, it means resentment and hurts. And I was like, of course it
Bitterness, holding it. Yeah.
will. Right?
And especially things that are not said, like, shit, I didn't get to
You
get up.
think? Like, I was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
now what
Yeah.
does mama do with that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, so, and,
And
great, great. Thanks for that. And if we have a belief that we are literally working to let go of,
mhm,
and we're trying, like we're working on it, it's like I'm really trying to tackle this thing here, and it doesn't seem to be budging, is where I say it may not be rooted here.
ooh,
It may not be rooted here. In fact, even like the abscess, it's like, oh, there's a block to the root. It's like, okay, so it's not rooted here. It sounds like you have enough awareness. It sounds like, you're aware of the things. So what is it?
what is it?
So to me, that's where it's like it's rooted in past life. And I'll wrap it up with this.
Mm,
Think about energy. Energy is not created or destroyed, it's only transformed.
true.
So if you think about the person that you couldn't stand in high school, the second I said it, you know their name, you remember the outfit they wore,
Yep.
you remember what they did, all the things. You're
I
like,
can't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday, but I can remember her name. I can remember everything, man.
exactly, right? Can't remember what I had for breakfast, but oh, I know who you're talking about, right?
Mm,
And so why is that? It's because the energy is still stored there. It's still held there. So now if we think about how many times we incarnate, how many times we do this thing called life for our own soul ascension, is that, so now, and I'll give you an example. Somebody's coming up to be a healer, and this is one that comes up often. Somebody's coming up to be a healer, or they're trying to get a little bit magical, and they like crystals, but they don't want anyone to know. Well, then we start working, and they're like, okay, well, you've been burned at the stake, you've been, condemned, you've had all these different things, so no kidding, you don't feel like you.
mm-hmm.
Or somebody's clairvoyant and they're like, I feel it, but I can't break through. And all of a sudden it's because, oh, well, you were condemned for what you saw, or you felt like you steered people the wrong way. Okay, let's clear. It's not true. You just believed that happened. Right? Have you ever had somebody be pissed off at you, or you think they are, and you create this whole story and you run with it, and then you find out later they were mad at their husband? Oh,
All
that's
the
my
time.
bad. Well, all that energy was unnecessary, right? So like we are, we assume so much. So if you are holding something that doesn't seem with your own work, like your own working through your conscious mind, your subconscious, and it doesn't seem to be budging, it's not rooted here. It's not rooted here. So it's tethered to something in past life, including soul relationships. That's the big one, because we will come back in to clear them. Yeah.
Like the truth of that statement. I mean, I know that many people will not be able to see my face, but there's just like this.
Yeah. And I mean, and it's like, I can't tell you, I've been in this practice now for 8 years. And the reason why I came to it was because I practiced Reiki, and I was like, this is amazing. And I became a Reiki master teacher, and it was amazing. And then I would see people come back, and because I see, and I'm like, why is that energy back there? Like, it's the same. It's the exact same thing. Why is it back? So then I started to ask spirit, like, what do I need to do? My word was, how do I get it from the root? That's exactly what my word was. How do I get it from the root? Like, how do we pull this out completely so they don't just it felt like it was growing back. And then, you know, through a series of beautiful spiritual synchronicities, boom, here I was. And I had, when I took the training, which was 6 intense days, I hadn't even had a session. It was one of the niggles. It was like, you're going to this, you're doing this.
Yeah.
You're doing the thing. And I was like, okay, here we, you know, I am this thing.
Yes.
And I remember
I'm here, but I know I need to be. Yeah.
Oh, I had a million questions, and somebody was like, kind of looked at me at one point, have you ever had a session? I was like, no. And then it was like, what are you doing here? Because unless you've experienced it, you don't know the potency. And I was like, I followed the call. And I mean, my life transformed. I actually released one of my youngest son's father, and which was a very toxic relationship with the narcissist, and seemed like it would never end. And I remember when, before finding this modality, Spirit had said, you're not done learning. And I was like, I am done. I promise you I'm done. You know, and it was like, no, you're not, because
you need to watch the YouTube of this one, because there's so many facial expressions going on here. It's just like,
so true, right?
I'm so done.
I am done. And it was like, no, you're not. But, and you know, and I hear you so much, because these things are real and we live them. And especially when kids are involved, I get it. And like 5 years after kind of we really split, I had the most incredible experience with him energetically, where he came and he started planting seeds of love back in my heart. And he's like, if you only understood how much I loved you, to be that person, to cause you harm, and for everybody around you to hate me because you are so lovely and good, and it didn't make sense. And like, I was like, holy shit, you're my angel. And the truth is like, sometimes we need that person to support us in shattering us down so we can actually see who we are. So I know it's not easy, and there's many people out there like that, whether it's parents or ex-partners or whatever, siblings. And once you can clear the parts of yourself that had energetic hooks in their approval or their love or them treating you a different way and whatnot. And again, I mean, I cleared and I cleared and I cleared and I cleared with this, like I cleared a ton. We had a lot of clearing, he and I, right?
Yeah.
And I also know that was part of my practice. And then seeing it transform in my immediate life was like, you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
Again, I was able to embody the work, because I'm like, no, I just cleared. I'll just give you one last thing. So we were in court, okay, going to court constantly because narcissistic, and he's saying I'm not letting him see our child, and of course I would never do that, and like all this stuff. So I'm sitting in the courthouse prior to court clearing. I'm doing a session, okay? And there was all this dark energy and all this negative energy, and all of a sudden all the alarms in the entire courthouse goes off, and the entire building has to be evacuated. And literally their fire people are there, they're like, we don't know, the alarms weren't triggered. And I'm like outside finishing my clearing, because I clear with the pendulum, and I was like, wow, this really works.
I know, right? It's just yes.
Yeah. So it doesn't mean that the human part that's like, oh my gosh, can we be done with this, isn't exhausted and done. And if it's not, or if it doesn't seem to be unhooking when you're like, no, I'm good. I feel like the lesson's complete. Like, let's unhook this. It's not rooted here.
Interesting.
So,
well, isn't that fascinating? I'm so glad we had a chance to chat today.
yeah,
To
me
be
too.
honest, I'm super stoked to, like, pause the podcast, and we'll have to have you back. But
Love that.
like,
That.
oh my gosh, this is just incredible, and I'm so glad we had a chance to chat, and can't wait to chat, directly after. But just
Yeah.
boom, like,
Yeah.
wow.
Boom. Couple of mic drops, a little, again, that's that Uranus Aquarius energy. Boom. Let's talk about alchemy. Let's talk about past lives. Let's talk about beliefs. Okay. Now everybody go finish your dishes.
Now go finish your dishes and think about, what's coming. No, this is perfect because if my listeners are listening in live time, we're going to launch this right before the new year, to really just sort of people think about what they're dragging into the new year and what they could potentially let go of, right? I love the new year. I really do. I check in with myself halfway through the year and then again at the end. And I'm super stoked for 2022. For me, it really feels like the end of a cycle, which I'm so grateful for, because it's been a long 20 years. I'm like,
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, ready. Bring on, 2022. But anyway, so again, for my listeners, we will have all of the information for you to connect with Elise and follow along. And, I'm just so excited. And Elise, thank you. Thank you for showing up so magically today. This was so much fun.
It was so much fun. I'd love to come back and have.
Oh, we're going to have you back. Definitely.
Sure.
So expect an email from us. We love the on-course, because of course then listeners know you and they are, hungry for more. So certainly if somebody has a question, you guys can drop it in the comments down below. We'll make sure that we come on back for that. And for the rest of you listeners, thank you so much for listening and sticking with me through another episode. And we will catch you all on the flip side.
Beautiful.
Are you looking for a simple, easy weight management solution? I thought you might be. I know I was. I also wasn't interested in something with a ton of gimmick without any science behind it, which I know a ton of companies have. The company I'm about to share with you actually has 12 of their own clinical studies. And for me, with my science-based background, I needed to know that. I also needed to know the product worked. And so I was introduced to the group that had 125,000 members in it, all supporting amazing stories of weight management, weight loss, hair regrowth. Oh my gosh. Not surprising though, considering the product itself has won numerous awards in and out of the nutraceutical industry, which I think is pretty incredible. Pretty exciting as well is the fact that it's made with their patented technology, 7 international patents on the collagen in this product, made entirely from chicken sternum. Chicken sternum, why? Because it most closely mimics the collagen that our own bodies create. Now, I'm a 36-plus-year-old woman, and so making sure that I'm maintaining and taking care of and trying to reverse the clock so I can age gracefully is super important to me. Making sure I'm taking products that are safe, making sure I'm taking products that are approved, and making sure I'm taking products that I would be happy to share because there's integrity at the top. So this company is a values-based company, which I absolutely love. Not only do I love that, but I love the flavors. This is mango. Mango's my favorite. This is from the Modera company, which you've heard me talk about before. 1 simple spoonful a day. In the morning, I can add it to my coffee if I feel like it. I don't add the mango, I add the vanilla to my coffee. But I can add a simple spoonful to my day. It tastes awesome. It tastes amazing. And it's helping my body to maintain the figure that I've worked to get to. Why not? Now, if you're looking for some weight management, this is going to help curb appetite. It's going to help your body to function as best. And we know that when you do something like that and you make wiser choices, your body says thank you. This is part of an entire system called the Lean Body System. I will make sure to post information for that below, or you're welcome to scan the QR code, which I know is going to be somewhere in the screen if you're watching this on YouTube. If not, head over to modere.ca. That's MODERE, modere.ca, or modere.com, and use code 5579027. Again, 5579027 to save $10 on your next order, regardless of what you put in your cart. Thanks so much. Have a great rest of the listen.
Welcome back to another episode of the Create the Ripple podcast. I am your host, Candice Smiley, and I am so excited